Welcome to Dead Air Live. I'm Jean Flanagan, and tonight I'm going to talk about Cambodia and Tabitha Cambodia, which is a nonprofit organization set up to help the poorest of the poor in Cambodia. We're going to talk about the story of Cambodia, which many Americans don't know about, in the Pol Pot regime, which ruled Cambodia for 4 years between 74 and 78, and basically destroyed the country. And I had an opportunity this summer with my mom and two sisters to go to Cambodia, and I brought my camera along. And so tonight we're going to look at some footage about Cambodia, about the Tabitha program, about the lives of people in Cambodia. So the first tape that I want to show you tonight is actually about the ancient temples of Cambodia, the temples at Angkor. The largest one being Angkor Wat, and they're from 11th century, and they are actually commemorate the Cambodian revolt against Siam, which is now Thailand, and they beat Siam and maintained, and Angkor Wat was their capital at that time. So all that exists still are these stone temples, and each temple was surrounded by wooden huts and whole villages. So let's look at the ancient temples of Angkor. It's not over yet. Thank you. Hi. Welcome to Dead Air Live again. Well, we didn't quite catch the tail end of that one, but that's okay. That was the ancient temples of Angkor, and that was sort of the height of ancient Cambodia. And then Cambodia got tangled up in the Vietnam War with the Americans. The Americans started using some of Cambodia to fight Vietnam. When the Americans in 1974 finally pulled out of Cambodia, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge regime took over Cambodia. And what he did in the course of 4 years was he told everyone that they had to leave the city, and he had developed a youth cadre that were between 13 and 15 years old that basically were all over in all the cities. And they told everyone they had to leave the city in 3 days. They had to leave the city immediately, come back in 3 days so that he could clear out the Americans. And basically what he did, his goal was to create a rice culture. He had studied in China and to learn how to do all of this, and wiped out most of Cambodia and most of Cambodian culture in 4 years. The people are still attempting to recover from that, and Jan Ritzkes, who we're going to hear in the next video, came from Canada, has started her nonprofit show, a nonprofit foundation, that with a goal of just helping Cambodia. And what I want to do now is show you some video of the two major museums that are in Phnom Penh. Tuol Sleng, which is the where they tortured prisoners, and the killing fields which were mass graves. And Jan is going to talk about the reign of the Pol Pot regime. So this is the genocide of Cambodia.
Phnom Penh was actually the place of beautiful people. Most every movie star you can think of in the 50s came here, as most of the world's sporting heroes actually came here. They came here because it's considered the pearl of Southeast Asia. It's a beautiful place to come, still is. People are very easygoing, nice ambience here. And they actually built a place called Olympic Stadium. Olympic Stadium was built in the mid-50s because Cambodia was actually going to be in the running to hold the Olympics here in the early 60s. And it probably would have happened if everything else had intervened. So they were really an integral part of the international community, respected and growing up just like all the other nations in the world. In April of 1975, about 33 years ago, it became very clear that the Americans were losing the war. On April 16th, the Americans left Cambodia. Khmer Rouge were outside the city gates. On April 17th, they entered the city of Phnom Penh and every other city in the countryside. The people of Cambodia were elated. That street was full of young people, 12 to 14-year-olds primarily, dressed in black. And people came out of their homes and out of their businesses and out of the marketplace, and everybody came out and cheered, you see? Because that was the first morning in about 8 years there were no B-52 bombers leaving Ho Chi Minh Airport. The father comes home at 5 o'clock and he says, I heard a rumor. Heard a rumor that the Khmer Rouge would like us to pack our bags, leave the cities for 3 days. Wants to clean out the American sympathizers still holding out in Phnom Penh and the other major cities. Like you, the people of Cambodia said, can't be true, can't be true. This is nuts. It's our first day of peace. No B-52 bombers that day. Nobody died in Cambodia that day. Wonderful, wonderful, after all this time. I'm going to share Vaughn's story because Vaughn's story is the norm. Her story is just a reflection of what everybody else suffered. It's just easy to tell because she was very young and very straight line, whereas some of my older staff got to suffer, be tortured in many, many other ways. The day the Khmer Rouge arrived, like you, nobody really paid attention. During the evening, I suspect they figured it out, but nobody was showing them the respect that was due them. So they decided during the nighttime that they would shoot one family per city block. That should get the message across. Next morning, Vaughn gets up with her mom and her 6 brothers, her father, and they go downstairs and she's waving goodbye to her 6 brothers. One of them's working, 5 are at school, Dad's going off to work. Very typical middle-class family. And as she's waving goodbye to them, the Khmer Rouge pull up. And why her family? My guess is they were convenient, a bunch of people all together. That solved a whole lot of problems, but I don't know. So whatever the reason, they came up and they shot and they killed her 6 brothers and her father. Her mother didn't have the chance to explain to her 4-year-old daughter what death was. Khmer Rouge made it very clear to her mother she had exactly 1 hour to pack her bag and leave town or she too would die. Mother's not stupid. She picked up her little 4-year-old girl, went inside, grabbed Grandma, grabbed a sack of clothes, and joined the millions of others as they were leaving Phnom Penh. He said we were a total waste of energy, total cost. He said it would be much better just simply to exterminate those people, and as he would tell you, to keep you as a cost, to destroy you is absolutely no loss. Vaughn lost her complete identity during those years, was unable to use the word I. And she put her hand out and she said, if I'd had 3 more grains of rice, the baby would have lived. It's my fault the baby died. And I said, Vaughn, tell me what happened. What baby are you talking about? And then her whole body starts to shake and she said, you don't understand. If I had had a leaf big enough to clean the baby's butt with, the baby would have lived. It's my fault. Vaughn's story is a very simple one. When she got down in Kompong Som, they put her in a children's camp. Because she was 4 and very tiny, they thought she would be no good in the rice fields. So the Khmer Rouge made her responsible for 60 babies, all under the age of 1. If you go to Tulslug in the killing fields, I'm hoping that you've read the rules. Well, one of the rules is very, very clear. You may not cry. You may not cry when I hit you. You may not cry when I torture you. You may not cry when I starve you. At nighttime, she would take her 60 babies and she'd lay them in a room about the size of that wall back there and out to about here, and she'd lay them on the bare floor. And like all children under 1 of them or 2 of them would start to cry, and she would pick that baby up, this little 4-year-old, and she would desperately try to get this baby to stop crying. And she couldn't. The Khmer Rouge cadre would come in and they'd take that baby from her and they'd bash it against the wall and then they'd throw it at her feet and then they'd say to her, see, that's all the problem, eh? It's your fault. It's your fault. And I said to Vaughn, how many babies, Vaughn? How many babies? She said, I don't know, Jen. I don't know. I was 4 when it started. I was 7 when it was over. Every night, Jen, every night. I am back. I am back.
They don't have a saw to cut our yes,
organic murder weapon
instead of the saw. Oh, it's very amazing for the kids also.
That's awful. Most of the ones that did that were young.
He said that he's going to raise the economy here and he's going to rebuild it based on rice, just like Angkor Wat was. He was going to grow rice, and your only reason for living, by the way, during his reign, was to plant, to grow, to harvest rice. Now, if you could do those 3 things, you got to live. But you couldn't eat it, you know? That would be a cost to the state. God forbid you should have that. So the very first day he goes to Central Bank, takes out all the money, goes to Olympic Stadium, and he sets it alight, just like that. He said that money was the root of all evil. Unquestioning obedience is based on illiteracy. So he said right away, all of you, and I would like you to please respond properly, that have completed grade 8, please raise your hands. Then he took our children. He said our children carried our blood and our genes and would grow up to be enemies of the state. You know what they did. And so what he did with the parents right away was he separated them. His parents would treat each other with authority rather than him. And he separated them. And then he took all the kids and he took them away from their parents and he put them into children's camp. To be yourself was to die. To be yourself was to die. And people very, very quickly started to destroy everything that gave them an identity. Their birth certificates, their school records, their land ownership, their passports, their visa, their bank records, anything that gave you an identity was a death sentence. And so they destroyed it all. In 3 days, Pol Pot not only killed his people, he destroyed his society completely. We have never heard of anyone, not one person, come back and reclaim what's rightfully theirs. And then they gave away the very last thing that gave them their sense of self. They gave away their name. I became Tom to you, Dick to you, and Harry to you. Between 3 and 4 million that he executed. The Americans killed 1 million. He did 3 to 4 million.
Hi, welcome back. I'm talking tonight about Cambodia, and the woman who just narrated the genocide of Cambodia, Jan Ritsky, is from Canada, and she came into Cambodia, and because she needed to start a nonprofit in order to help Cambodians return to their former being, and they just didn't have anything to start with. So she started this group called Tabitha Cambodia, and she has connected around with people all over the world. And she works in several ways. The foundation has a program in Phnom Penh that has sewers, and they sew beautiful purses and handbags and quilts and silks and cottons, and she set up weaving villages. Her program is based on a savings program so that people earn money in order to earn the things that they want. And then what donations are, set up the 10% interest that she pays. So if you save 10 cents, you get a penny, you get 11 cents back. And those are the grounds that they work from. The next video that I'm going to show you is about the Tabitha Savings Program. And our involvement with the Tabitha Savings Program is actually the house building project. So what she has started, and this is our gift, this Tabitha Cambodia house building team. This is a classic head wrap, body wrap. I mean, everyone in Cambodia has a piece of cloth like this that looks like this. And so ours were embroidered by the women of Tabitha. And what she does is she has tourists arrive, and we go out in teams and we get to go to the villages and meet people in villages that have never met Westerners before and build some houses for them. So one afternoon we went and we built 4 houses. It was about a 6-hour drive out of Phnom Penh because most of it's dirt roads. So let's look at the Tabitha Savings Program. The woman that's going to speak is Margaret Elwanger. She was our guide, and she brought our group to Cambodia and connected us up with the Tabitha Foundation. So let's.
What brought you here first?
I actually knew about the genocide. I went back to college when I was 28. I actually read something about what was going on here during the Khmer Rouge years. Went to the dean of the college because, you know, that's what we all do. And protest was the big game of the time, right? And got myself in quite a bit of trouble very quickly. And the deal was that if I didn't talk about Cambodia, they wouldn't put me in a place like Guantanamo, and I thought that was pretty fair. So I denied the people of Cambodia. I owed them. I worked for Christian Reform Relief Committee in Philippines. Philippines is where I grew up, I always say. That's where I matured in terms of gracious people. And then Kenya, East Africa, Romania for a year, and then here. Actually, my pension, and here we are. Worked out really well.
It starts with the savings program. All they're doing is saving maybe 10 cents every 6 weeks. The initial introduction is a staff member identifies a village that's baseline in our need category, meaning they have to truly be the poorest of the poor. Prevent province. And the other guy, hey, Mr. Chun, he is a staff too. Yes. In the province we have only 2 people to do, but we have more volunteers that help our work. This is the guy that in charge Chak Klang area, our volunteer. Whoever the staff member is that did that will go to the village elder and ask permission if he can speak with the villagers. If the village elder gives that permission, pretty soon by word of mouth, in fact you saw in our little villages, somebody shows up, you don't need a newspaper, everybody just comes and you're the news. So that's what happens. You kind of stand around for 10 minutes and within 10-15 minutes you have the entire village around you. And then we say to them, we come because we've noticed there are things that maybe you would like to attain. Do you have any dreams? But if you would like to, we will give you this process. Well, most people say yes. Although it's very interesting, when we first started, when the people were still so demoralized from the Pol Pot years, when they were so incredibly worthless, in their own sight, many of them would actually say, no, I don't deserve the glass. And so the first step in that case was to say, actually we think you do. And that's one reason we are here. And we had to start this process of saying to them, we believe you deserve your own glass, you deserve a pot, you deserve certain things. Now it's really just listening to what their dreams are. Some will outright tell you right off the bat, I want to be a weaver someday. But being a weaver someday is a long process because, you'll have to earn a weaving chair and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you're serious about your dream, you must learn to save. And we open our little cigar box and say, who's willing to save? Then they all giggle and say, we have no money. We say, come on, you must have a penny, you must have 2, And we let them know if they don't need to be shy. If they have 10 cents, it's not about the amount, it's about the principle. And then we explain to them that in 6 weeks we come back and we pay interest. The word interest is a vocabulary, the first vocabulary word they learn in our system. And boy, after a few cycles of that spreads around in the village like wildfire. We get money from giving this money. It gives more, it's magic. But then there are these milestones of what this money buys. The first glasses, a pot, sometimes a sleeping mat or whatever. When you give people here money, they truly pick things that are healthy, and water is one of their first choices. And then 4 families each band together for the cost of the well. Once we have the well, they all start gardens, and suddenly they all have their own vegetable fields. Once again, their diet is healthier, there's less disease, but the surplus goes to market. So, it becomes, each cycle accelerates this positive feeling and this vision, hey, I really can do this. Or other people love animals. You know, all they ever dreamt was of owning a pig. So you help them get their pig, and you help them, you know, give them pointers how to treat that pig real good so it stays healthy and strong. Pretty soon they have piglets, and they can sell those piglets, you know, and then the magic of not just interest, but the magic of generating money from your enterprise hits. Alcohol from the rice.
Alcohol from the rice.
Yes. From the rice. In the case of the sewers though, and that's the beauty of the cost of the needle and the thread is so little for us that anybody can do it off the bat. The problem comes in, not everybody has a knack for it. So as we visit in the villages, and that's again the beauty of visiting every week, pretty soon you realize, oh, this lady has talent for sewing, but this lady over here can't hold a needle straight, so forget about the stitching. However, she's a mean cook. So as we then become a consultant and an advisor to them, we'll say, maybe you have talent to start a street vendor stand. Can we help you save for the pots and pans that it takes to become a businesswoman? The man in the blue shirt,
Does he actually live in the village?
He goes, that's what he does all day long. He has many villages.
Oh, okay.
He will also be the one who will find a new area and approach Jan when he found a new area that he thinks should be done.
Oh, okay.
So, and every Friday he travels to Phnom Penh, because on Fridays all the staff from the provinces come in to get their funds for the next week. You know, for the savings program, because you know he's the bank, the village bank. So the blue guy is also the village banker. But Jan works everything on a 7-day cycle then, because you know you can't. It's too much risk to have cash around.
Yeah.
So no matter where they are, comes Friday, they come into town. They are the ones who bring the cottage industry goods that is produced in the village also, which you then see for sale. So for instance, on Friday, the stores always stock best because all the stuff comes in on Friday. So that's what they do. They bring in the cottage industry and they bring in their little book, aka the cigar box, the bank, and then they say to Jan, I need this much to pay interest this week. And let's say somebody has kicked in enough for a well, you know, he's the one who works with the local contractors who keeps the prices so low. And so sometimes the staff is able to tweak the numbers of what it takes for the villagers and what it takes from Tabitha as a contribution. And I think that's one of the beauties, that she trusts her staff enough to assess the need of the village, that when the staff really says, Jan, that's all they can do. You know, you've heard the word microcredit a lot. You know, we, about 5 years ago, decided microcredit is still too risky, and we went to micro savings. So we completely phased out microcredit because it was too dangerous. Because the loan cycle is this dangerous cycle, then if anything ever goes wrong, heaven forbid, the loan shark will say, oh, you have a cute 7-year-old, so you can't pay your $50, because even if you lose one girl to prostitution because somebody can't pay $50 back, it's too much. And so everything we do is based off of their savings, and we found that changes their psyche. You know, the microloan, there's still this stress of, what if I have a bad harvest and I can't repay the loan? There's stress. But the micro savings is, I own this. By the time that house is built, they have already bought the land. So
So they outright own the land. There's no loans. Our donors, basically, that's the one set of money that comes from donors to pay the interest. That's really our only gift to them, the 10% interest. You know, in very rare cases like the ones we do, we donate the money. But in most houses, it's only 10%. So they actually come up with 90% of the house too. But we donate the labor fully. If you on the website donate for a house, it's actually, we kick in $85 and 10 houses basically get built.
Oh, okay.
You know, that concept is so difficult to explain on the website. You know, let's keep it simple. We can do this. And it culminates in the house. And once they have the house, we say, you know, we love you. We've been with you anywhere from 3 to 6 to 7 years to attain this. But now you can no longer be selfish. You must say goodbye to us and let us start with a new family.
You play the guitar?
Chào mời con đây anh mời. À.
You guys are awfully giggly.
Hi, welcome back. So that's the program, that's the house building program, and somewhere embedded in there you saw my mom and my two sisters hammering away. I didn't give anybody the camera so you can't see me hammering. But we had a great time, and you can see the villagers just, you know, it's just a really interesting interaction, and you really get to know these people that just, you know, have never seen, they may have seen 3 white people before. So it was really, really fascinating. And you really got to see just how poor and how little they have. Their villages are immaculate because they have nothing. There's no extra paper products. There's no anything. So by providing them with a house or a glass, then they get to choose what they want. So there's lots of it was really interesting. We got to go visit some other villages besides the ones we built houses in. The next video that I want to show is back in Phnom Penh, where the primary purpose that Margaret got my mom and my 2 sisters and I involved in was because Tabitha has this big sewing program. They have women that sew with silk and women that sew with cotton, and they're getting out of, many of them are getting out of prostitution, which is about the only viable industry for women to make a living in if they don't have support of a husband or they don't live out in a village where they can farm. So it's a huge program. There's probably 30 or 40 women, including hand embroiderers, in that building that we saw. So the next video that I want to show is actually my 2 sisters and my mom and myself teaching at Tabitha in the city. So they finished it up. It takes them about a week to make the whole quilt from start to finish.
We're coming to meet U.S. sewers and to see the wonderful work that you do and to bring some back.
What I have is, I'm just going to show you how to make
Okay, they would like very much for you to show them how to do this.
Yep.
Okay? So they're actually going to make, yeah, they would like you to do it. Okay.
This fits the fabric. Yes. The raw edge. Yeah. Selvage. Yeah. And then have a composite. You cut this out. Yeah. And then this is a facing. It's right width. Yes. Well, I don't know what to do. Yes. Để máy của mình. Anh cảm ơn nó biết đâu được.
I'll be your first customer.
Centimeters too long. The top pocket. Yes. We also have ties. 39 which is 39 100 quite right. What's that? This ride is thin and wide, so They are so round. Okay, I need five. The 75. The Gafran. Five.
And then, okay, now we have to cut. It must be the square.
Yes. But this one showing.
Okay, add the single rounds.
Yes.
Oh, well, no, it doesn't matter. No, we'll just cut on the line. That's what we do.
The
bottom.
Yes.
I'll take each piece. Just hold it. Now the last one, let's miss the one. The last one has to go. You're gonna see all the way around.
Oh, còn lo nào? Là chắc đây quay bớt.
Different colors? Be 4 colors?
Yes. Yes. Là buôn phố á. Thì là buôn phố là việc đó là được buôn phố hay vậy? Thì mà một cái buôn phố.
No hand sewing, just machine.
Yes.
She's going to choose that on the cake. Is it possible for you to bead the lower edge? Start.
This is the way you mark. So this is how
Right. And they are all little circles.
put it on the wrong side because these are up in the garment might show. Take a pin, put it through one point, through the other point, stitch dot to dot. When you get here, you need to tie the thread because you don't want it to pop over. Go 2 or 3 stitches more right on one thread. And you want to needle back.
Đây hai là bao nhiêu phần vậy? Chôn mà đi, anh chôn mà đi. Chọn một viên.
Cái nữa. Con mở không kẹp đấy. Chấm cái nữa.
The shoulder seam. Then you'll have a double notch on one side and a single notch on the other side. Then if you have a side pattern and you want to go up and you don't have an up, it doesn't happen. This is what you do. You slit your pattern. Another one you have. And that's the top. Yes, the sleeve.
Hi, and welcome back. That was our adventure teaching. Shantu was the woman who could speak English and was translating, and those were all the head seamstresses. And then they will then take and translate the different techniques to their sewers. Their sewing is amazing, and their purses are absolutely beautiful, and their ties and table runners and quilts. And so what we were really just teaching them was new product to make. They just, they love being there. It's a really safe place for them to be, and it's one of the few times many of them live on the street, and so they're actually safer at work than they are when they're not at work. So it's really a really vibrant, wonderful place for us to hang out as sewers. The next video that I want to show you is as our reward for teaching. Jan set up for us to go and visit a weaving village where they weave ikat silk. And ikat silk is the pattern that's behind me, and they actually tie-dye all the threads that they're weaving with before they weave it, and then they lay them in place. So we're going to go to this video and see how far we can get through it before the end of the show. Thanks.
Village in Takai province. Tất chuối cho ta không?
Weaving presses.
This is how they make the iCat. They're dyeing the iCat.
Oh. Okay. Take your pictures.
Tedious work. And what's he doing?
Okay, so these are the silk fibers, and they're gonna go dye them.
They actually
Yeah.
Yeah, they're tying off
With
the
raffia,
different
they
parts
cover
that
the
you-
parts they don't want colored.
Yeah.
And they're doing a batik technique with the raffia. And then as you can see, the silk gets darker, and then they cut away some of it and add new parts.
Take on the unwrapped.
Those are will become the threads that they actually weave with.
Okay, he's just doing the initial stringing.
It's just so amazing.
Jan, I think Jan has a book of all the stuff. No. She
Yeah, they
She teaches them how to dye when they're little.
Yes.
How old are they when they teach them how to dye?
Ô nè, cặp phải che ngao che chữ lục pon nó tăng tiền dụng mà. They can do that different color. The people want the black one, and they tie on the black one. When they dye, they cannot get only black one.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I'll explain to you in a moment.
How many? I'm just gonna look and see how many harnesses there are. Just interesting.
One color they have. They show you how much in a day. Sâu biết món mà ba mà
It's gonna be brown.
the plant seed they can do 2 meter a day.
2 meters. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I left my batteries. They brought extra batteries today because I think she's going to die.
It's already pre-colored.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the whole point of
To
iCat.
make the mom.
Yeah.
Mom. But
So this woman, as she's weaving, has the printed thread. She's taking one spool about 4 times across, and then she's changing to a different spool. And you can see her actually, she has to line each thread up, and that makes it slightly off center. So that's what she's working on. They can do half a yard of ikat in a day, in an 8-hour day. They can do 4 yards of plain silk in an 8-hour day.
I thought they dyed it by hand tying all the different wefts.
No, because usually, like when I was here, before they didn't have the pre, they just had like a lot of those different shuttle things.
Well, you give you regular paper.
It's still hard to be that accurate. They do. They tie-dye it, and that's why it's offset by that little bit.
But you see that
It is a
the
good
way
thing.
she rolled this up is she undoes, she loosens that up, and I guess it comes this way. Where the warp is underneath that black cloth.
Yeah, it's important.
Bodily functions are important.
That somehow that has to come this way. Yeah, she rolls up this way. Yeah. Huh. Well, yeah, but usually it's on a roll to roll. So.
Take this one, Leon.
Serena, have you looked at the bob?
Hi, welcome back. There's some more footage of the weaving village, but I have got other things that I wanted you to see. So I you've seen the basics. The ikat was pretty amazing to watch because they really have dyed all that beforehand. We got to go to a number of other villages, and including a floating village, which was actually Vietnamese living in Cambodia, living on boats. And then what I want to show you for our outro
is just some random images of things that didn't necessarily fit a topic because all the other stuff was topical. So let's go to images of Cambodia. Thank you very much. Good night.
I have egg. I have sausage. I have cheese. I have a morning breakfast sandwich.
On a fresh baguette.
And a fresh baguette. It doesn't get any better than this.